And nothing happened. Well, hello, everybody. We don't know where Carey's at, but he'll be right back. There he is.
Welcome. We're
I was
live.
throwing you under the bus while you were MIA.
What now?
I was throwing you under the bus while you were missing in action.
Well, you know, I figured it was either be like 5 seconds late to the live or I have to stop mid-show because I almost felt like I was drowning. So,
all right.
Let's see. Dwayne gets the super early award. He was here early. And then we got Kelly checking in. Honest Citizen Reviews. Sounds like that could be interesting. El Paso, Texas. Love it. Oklahoma checking in.
There's Clark.
Clark's here. Half a day.
Holy cow. Guam's on time today. Hi,
well,
Ethan.
I think he might not be at work. Or he may be working. And he just got his earbuds in on time. He reviews knives.
Wow.
Dude, that could be really cool.
Wow.
A lot of years ago, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I worked for a company called Hecklers Online, and I got paid to review video games. That's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, another one checking in from South Carolina.
I don't get paid to review shit.
Ooh, Albuquerque, Phillips here. Huh?
I don't get paid to review shit.
Look, it was the coolest thing.
Wait a minute. I do get paid to get review shit.
I was going to come back to that because I mean, if you scroll through your pictures, there's been a lot of folks that have sent you shit pictures.
I know it.
Impact Game Farm, welcome. Yeah, he's in North Alabama. Let's see. Benefits of being a knives, to sharpen my own tools and heels. That does sound nice. And that's a lot of folks checking in fast.
Yeah.
So tonight's show, I've scoured the internet for the last couple of days, really hard for the last hour to 3 earlier this afternoon, spent a couple hours. And I was looking for hard questions. Because, you know, a lot of times we come on and some folks are kind of hesitant to ask Jeff the hard questions. And some folks, you know, really lay it to him and do ask him hard questions. But I'm going to see just how much we can mess with Jeff tonight. And I found some questions with various levels of difficulty. Some were, and some I'm just like, you probably should have kept that question in your pocket. Look, some people ask some of the most challenging questions.
Yeah. You could ask me shit like, how long can a hen hold sperm? Or
well, I mean, no, because I don't think that there's a real answer for that.
You know why there's not a real answer for that?
Because they're just like women, they're all different.
Partially, but based on the health of that hen and how actually healthy she is and how good a shape she's in, the fluid in her oviduct and how much she secretes will actually be the dictator in how
The real
long
answer to the question.
how long that sperm will last. So
Yeah.
for some hens fed a complete shit diet, she's probably 7 to 14 days. And then hens that are being fed exceptionally well can probably hold that for up to 30 days. So just depends on what you're feeding and how well you're taking care of her. So,
and you know, the same could be said for
don't say it. Your wife might be watching. Don't say it.
I'm gonna tell you right now, she will openly admit that she is well taken care of.
Okay.
We try our both best to spoil each other pretty well.
All
But
right.
I've got a list of questions that look. I took down almost 100 questions.
Well, we're not going to get 100 questions done. You know
No,
that, right? Okay. All right.
not even going to try. Hopefully, some of them I hope will spark some good conversation, especially for this time of year, as it's starting to get cooler. Or unless you live in Alabama, where it was in the low 30s last week and low 80s this week. But hey, it's still something to think about when it's
Yeah.
this time of year. So, and
That really sucks for the birds. Big temperature swings like that.
I mean,
They don't know how to adapt. You usually get rain with some of that.
So luckily we have it, which has been good because, going from 70s to 30s with a bunch of rain, man, that's just like asking for problems.
Usually the temperature drop is not the issue. It's when it comes back up again and the humidity or the rain comes with it. Because your bacteria bloom on the flip side is usually worse. But anyway.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But as always,
you rarely see the respiratory or health issues when the temperature drops. You always see it when it's rebounding or doing a lot of flip-flopping up and down. But
so that's why we see a lot of those in Alabama, because if you don't like the weather, just wait an hour or two. Yeah, it'll change.
Well, maybe I won't move to Alabama.
What is the most common deficiency in winter gamefowl rations?
There isn't one. It's a perceived deficiency that it would be energy, and it's really not. Because most of the gamefowl feeds on the market have way too much damn corn in them. But anyway, in my opinion, what they all lack at all times of the year is the required level of vitamin E to support the immune system at its highest level. Okay.
So I was thinking, like, I saw on the post that I saw this on, it was like 100 comments. Probably 80 of them said protein. And I'm like,
protein's always the answer. Come on, man.
Protein is like, people, I said vitamin E, which, to be honest, I don't know that that's seasonal, because if you look at a lot of rations, the E is usually lower. It's not 50, definitely not 50s. So
you're correct. But 3 years ago, you didn't know that either, right? So,
well, this is true.
So here is an educational thing, right? Is the optimum level of vitamin E for maintenance is 50 IUs per pound. Of course, it's not on a label anywhere, right? So nobody's going to be able to go check their feed tag. Now, a few companies like Kalmbach, and they're not my favorite, but there's a few companies like Kalmbach that if you go to their website, they'll tell you the actual vitamin levels, right? And
Yeah.
So they are very uncommon. I am starting to see some of the other big ones follow suit. Like if you actually go to their website, they're starting to compete at that level. However, your average poultry feed will be between 10 and 20 I use a vitamin E per pound. That
Mm-hmm.
helps hold the cost down, but you're not getting full benefits out of your selenium, and you're not getting full benefits out of your immune system at 10 to 20, right? So their ability to fight off a disease is much lower. Now, during breeding season, you want your vitamin E up closer to 100, because a lot of that vitamin E transposes into the egg, which means it's going into the chick, which means you're going to have a healthier chick popping out of the egg, right? So anyway, there we go. The biggest deficiency, in my opinion, would be vitamin E. Okay. And it doesn't take much to make the difference.
All right, so that brings up another question. You could logically think vitamin D, because that comes from the sun and there's not as much sunlight. But on the flip side, do poultry absorb that like we do?
Well, you got to think about it, because the sun actually has to hit the skin in order for vitamin D to be converted, right? And
Yep.
on a fully feathered bird, there's only small patches of skin on the head and on the feet, right? So yes, they can transform vitamin D or synthesize vitamin D out of sunlight,
But it ain't a whole lot.
but it's not a whole lot, right?
Got it. So here's another question. Would blending different pellets or starter help with hitting that optimal development growth rate? Planning on blending the Caliente gamecock feed with some broiler pellets.
Kiku, if you send me the tags, I can give you a much better answer. But, yes, in some cases, blending the right pellets will give you an enhanced growth rate. Even though we're talking gamefowl, this is all about gamefowl. Using a really good starter feed on the market, A, fresh is important. B, somewhere around 21, 22, or 23 protein is important. Read those tags, make sure your amino acids are where you want them to be, right? And so starter feed for 6 or 7 weeks, right? And then you're going to switch over to something like an 18 or an 18 grower feed. But again, we're not focusing on the protein. We're focusing on the right amino acid levels, and a little bit of meat protein in there goes a long way. And I got a fella today who's going to run a trial for me. He's going to split chicks. And he's going to do 10 on an all meat diet, right? 100% meat diet. And then he's going to do 10 on the starter feed that I developed for him. Okay. With grains and soy protein and meat protein, right? And weigh them weekly and compare those growth rates over that first 8 weeks. And I am 95% positive that the meat only chicks are going to kick the shit out of the grain fed birds, right? Because at the end of the day, a chicken
I like the sounds of that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a chicken is a carnivore. It's not an omnivore, although we class it as an omnivore who eats seeds and meat and grain and insects and whatever. But, the stupid things descend from a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? Which was pure carnivore. So I think given, fresh meat, not dried, fresh ground meat diet from day one, those chicks are going to grow at such a rate. It's going to be phenomenal, right?
So you're just talking about like raw ground beef.
Yeah. Like a 90-10, somewhere around a 10% fat. I think even
Not
an 80-20.
cooking it.
No,
not
you ruin
mixing
it.
anything with it.
We're going to put a little calcium because we can't grind the bone. So we're going to put a little calcium with it. We're going to put a little oregonite with it. And we're going to put a little bit of poultry NutriBalancer with it, right?
Okay, so we're gonna kick up the vitamins a little bit.
Yeah. But all the protein and all the energy is going to come from the fat and the meat protein. All right. Now, raw meat by itself, almost every raw meat, like I've looked at raw moose meat, raw beef, raw bear, raw different kind of meat, fresh with the moisture still in it, right? Not dehydrated, nothing. They all run around 30%, anywhere from 28 to 32% protein.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, that's what we're going to start them on. And just hang on to your hat, because the amino acid profiles are so well balanced. I think the chicks are going to eat substantially less, but they're going to grow like way faster. Right.
Is that person going to weigh the feed intake as well?
We didn't talk about it. I mean, we can if you want to, but
it's just something I'm curious of. Or do they?
Because the meat is going to be 50% moisture, right? So most raw meats hold somewhere around 50% moisture. So they're probably going to drink a lot less. And how would I compare that to a grain mix that's only 10% moisture versus 50%? So then I have to do the math, right? And I have to do the conversions.
I mean, I'm just thinking, a lot of people are about the dollar. I'm just thinking, okay, so X number of pounds of beef mixed with some vitamins to feed this bird out for 6 to 8 weeks to get it to this size, versus X amount of premium feed. If you have the poundage, and you'd know the cost, and you could look at it that way. Because some folks, like, in 8 weeks, folks are going to ask tons of questions about this.
Right. And I don't know when he's going to start the trial. He's got to hatch something off and get everything set up, but he's agreed to run the trial.
That's awesome.
It is, right? I'd like to do it myself. And if I didn't travel so much, I would have my own little, brooder set up and do it. But I mean, on a really good chick starter feed, in 6 weeks, the bird should consume 3 to 4 pounds, right? Is what I would expect actual consumption to be. So I'm kind of curious where the meat comes in at. And yeah, I'm excited.
Got it. And we joke about protein being the answer to stuff, but Dwayne actually said, everybody knows that cord is actually the answer for everything.
Well, cord and styrofoam, come on.
Right.
If you have cord and styrofoam, you're okay.
Your birds are going to be 100%.
You got the best birds out there, right?
And
Somebody's got to take that serious. We shouldn't say that shit, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. Dwayne also brings up another important fact. Blending more pellets will definitely increase the amount of sawdust they're eating. That in some of the cheaper feeds, sawdust is used as a binder, instead of like some of the some wheat mids or some of the better quality crap that goes into making pellets.
Look, you use what you have on hand, but just so people know, it's called cellulose, right? They cover it up, and they don't call it sawdust it's cellulose fiber.
And there was a feed that somebody sent me that, like, the fiber level 11-12%, the protein level was about that, and the amino acids were almost non-existent. And they were like, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think they have more sawdust than grain in the feed. This is the ingredient that translates to sawdust if you look it up, and the rest of this sucks." So, yeah. Another question that comes up says, "What are some things to look for nutritionally after the molt is over?" after the molt is over, you definitely want to check amino acids.
Well, where are we
The
at
more
in that?
methionine, the better.
I mean, where are we at in the molt? So when somebody says molt is over, does that mean all the feathers have dropped? And where do we go from there? Or so some people say when the molt is over, that's when they got their feathers back again. So I just want to be clear where we're at as far as, to me,
Well, that is true.
To me, the molt is the process of losing weight and dropping feathers. Okay.
Yeah.
So once the feathers are completely dropped, or they're dropped as far as they're going to be, and you see the personality change in the bird where they have a little bit more energy and alertness again, means they're coming out of that sick feeling that they had of the molt. And yeah, like you said, it's going to be amino acids are actually the more important part at that point. I like a good 18% protein. Doesn't need to be any higher than that. And then if you're adding to the amino acids, getting methionine is really big. Cysteine is really big, but they don't put that on a label, so you don't know what you're getting. And it's actually cheaper in some cases to overfeed methionine because the chicken's body can convert some of that into cysteine in making feathers. But like a 1.1 lysine, 0.55, 0.6 methionine is going to give you the best feather structure, but you need to make sure you start it on time, right? You don't want to wait till the blood feathers or the pin feathers are already starting to show. You need to be just ahead of that. So actually, like right when the last feathers are dropping, the new feathers are already forming. So you've got to make your start then. And
yeah, I mean, we did a show on managing the molt correctly because it's like a whole process, and that's one of the periods in time that is really, really important that you look at your birds a lot, not so much touch them or handle them, because they're going to be mad at you because they're uncomfortable, they're miserable. I mean, it'd be like for a guy having a really bad case of the flu and having your wisdom teeth taken out at the same time. They feel like poop. They don't want to be talked to. They don't want to be messed with. They just want to be left alone and exist. But you need to be watching them so you can correctly manage that whole process. And man, when you do it right, the feathers that come back, they won't even look like the same bird as they did last year. They won't act it either.
It's hard to convince guys of that. They've been taught for so long as soon as they see the molt to increase the protein, and it's really not the right move. And actually, I really wish guys would, as soon as you see the first bird molting, right, as soon as you see the signs of molt coming to your yard, depending on where you're at, it'll vary anywhere from 1st of July to the first week of September. But take control of it, right, and feed a molting feed that helps the bird push, get rid of the feathers, right? Cycles those feathers out quicker by increasing the protein too soon. So there's a fever event going on inside that chicken in the early molt, like the first week and a half or so when it starts molting. There's kind of, their guts feel weird. Their whole body feels weird. They're not happy. Everybody sees it. They're droopy. They don't feel good, right? It's kind of like you getting that onset of the flu, right? Your whole body aches. You just feel like shit. You just barely hanging on to wanting to stay alive, right? So, when you put more protein in on them, protein increases the fever. The digestion of protein creates more body heat than anything else will ever feed them, right? So protein has the hottest body heat response. And then comes your corn and your carbohydrates, like your corn, your wheat, and your grains. Yeah. And then actually fat energy pushes the body temperature the least. Okay. So energy from burning fat creates the least amount of, body temperature change. Okay. So pushing high protein early molt is really hard on your chickens, right? It just makes everything worse. But people still do it because that's what everybody on every gamefowl forum says. Push the protein, push the protein, push the protein. I'm like, God.
Yeah, that's...
Anyway.
How many weeks is it okay to start switching heritage chicks from starter feed to grower or developer?
So most standard bred birds, non-commercial varieties, should be 6 weeks. 6 weeks starter, 6 weeks on grower, and then 6 weeks on a developer. And it should be a 22, 19, 17 drop down in protein, keeping your amino acids at good levels. But that's kind of where you want to be for the best results in grow out. Okay. You don't want to keep pushing high protein for too long. You can set up things like gout. You're making the kidneys work harder than they need to process that extra protein, which just comes out in the manure anyway. So you're giving it away. But no need to do that.
Yeah, that's a waste.
Yeah.
But a lot of, like you said a while ago, a lot of folks, they just feel like they have to do it. So,
well, that's what everybody's told them to do, right? You go to any chicken breeder forum out there, and everybody says, push the protein, push the protein, push the protein. And, it's just not the right way to go.
give them some more protein.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to pop this little picture up right here that you've given us to reference quite a few times, that people can take a screenshot of it or whatever they'd like to do. This right here, this is a clip off a spreadsheet presentation that you did at the United Gamefowl Breeders Association's annual convention in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, the numbers are what the numbers are, right? So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and that's and feeding higher numbers is not going to fix it. And God's honest truth, guys, if you screw up the starter phase in that first few weeks of life, it don't matter what you feed them. The rest of their life, they're going to be a bag of shit.
Okay? They'll never catch up.
Nope, never. So,
yep. Let's see. I know we got some more. Is it true starting your birds on whole corn helps them molt faster?
Only because it drops the protein level. All right. So it goes back to what I said a minute ago. On a molt feed, you want to drop the protein. I would prefer to use oats over corn. There is some truth in that statement that, doing the whole corn, because you're dropping the protein a lot. But I want to feed. Okay. So if I feed oats, the bird still feels full, right? It feels like its crop is full, feels like its gizzard's full, stays in there a lot longer. So the bird's appetite isn't as ravenous or crazy. Right. So also the oats really do a great job of cleaning out the intestinal and the gut wall and getting all that old gunk that was built up from the whole last year, getting her just cleaned out, get it reset, get it ready to go. So when you do come in there with that good feed after the molt, right, everything's getting absorbed, right? You're going to get the most for your money out of that post molt feed is what I call it. Right after the molt. Once feathers
back to the dropped, good stuff.
Back to the good stuff. High octane, right?
Yeah.
Put them on some jet fuel.
Let's see here. All right. So another question that I have found that seems to be controversial, and I don't really know why. What's the best ratio of whole grain to pellet out there? Or is that even a thing? Should they? I mean,
it depends what pellet. I mean, if you're talking
should,
about a 16% layer pellet, you're going the wrong way. If you're talking about a 20% like flock maker pellet or, all flock pellet or something like that, then it's 4-part pellet, 1-part grain. That gets you 18%.
what about a
If you want to
30-some% protein pellet?
Yeah, you want me to do the math that quick, but it's going to be 1-to-1, right?
Yeah.
So 1-to-1 is going to get you down to around 16.5%, 17%.
All right. This guy right here, I'm sometimes I wonder if he has stock in mackerel because he uses it for everything.
I know, but you can buy it cheap. Like I was telling you, if you go to Ollie's, where my daughter works,
right?
So I bought like 100 cans of canned mackerel for $1.99 a can, right? 12 or 14 ounce cans. Some poor Filipino living on a ship half of his life out there in the ocean, canning it and shipping it to the U.S., right?
Hey, you know what? We support all people that need to work.
I know. So, I give it to my dog. So does Dwayne. Giving that to those baby chicks I don't know what kind of starter feed he's starting with, but feeding some mackerel and some hard boiled egg, in the starter. Absolutely.
So he uses a 10-ounce. He said it's $1.25 at Dollar Tree.
Well,
So
he's getting a 10-ounce can, right?
Yeah, instead of the 16s.
Right. So it's about.
But I mean, crap ain't even a Dollar Tree anymore. Come on now.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I've never thought about mackerel and boiled egg with your chick starter.
Well, so like I did with Kelly when I visited him up there, right? And he had chicks. We ground up some liver and mixed it with some hard-boiled egg, right? And that's an excellent place to put your Show Pro supplement, right? And because it sticks to it, mix that all up, put that in there. Man, those chicks devoured that like you turn loose a bunch of 5-year-olds in a candy store. I mean, they were on that like right now. And it's an excellent start. And it's pretty much, that perfect protein fat ratio. So
yeah,
I have no problem with the mackerel. So
let's see. He says Feather Fixer 20.
Yeah, so if I was using a Feather Fixer 20 or the Flock Maker 20, I would do, if I wanted an 18 for conditioning, I would do 4-part pellet, 1-part grain. And if I wanted a yard feed, I would do 3-part pellet to 1-part grain, and that'll get you around 16%. Right. And
now, one thing that I wanted to tell him, and I tell this to a lot of people, is Feather Fixer and their they have another one that's supposed to be, great for feathering. Well, everybody knows that watches this show for a period of time. Methionine is a key amino acid for feathers, period. The flock maker, plain old flock maker, has a higher level of methionine in it than the Feather Fixer or it's the Full Bloom formula.
Is it the Full Plume or is it the Feathered and Fancy? Both the Full Plume and the Feathered and Fancy are actually lower in amino acids. So
yeah, which is kind of funny to me. But
yeah, well, people go for a name.
Marketing.
They're making money. Yeah.
He says, isn't it bad to feed mackerel with all the oils? No.
Oh no. Because you want the oil in a total diet to be above 5 and not above 8. Okay. So sit down and work out your math ratios and things like that. But no, those fish oils are going to be excellent for those chicks or any age bird for that matter, right? It's going to slick them up and make them look really good.
Yeah. So what do you think about starting chicks off with soaked mash at a 20% off flock pellet by Neutrina and adding the oats as they mature and transitioning to a 50% off flock and 50% gamecock mix?
Well, I'm all, soaking the mash when they're chicks, getting more moisture into them. I'm fine. I like that idea. And they clean it up. They don't leave any dust and particle behind. Then gradually adding the oats probably by week 2 and gradually increasing that. It depends on what gamecock mix. Some I see at 14%, which is too low. I see some at 16 and I see some at 18. So as long as it's above 16, I shy away from anything that says gamecock, game bird, game anything, because they put a bunch of stuff in there to make it look pretty to you and look pretty to the chicken, but it's not necessarily nutritionally balanced or even close. So, they're doing it as a visual stimulant. There's very few gamecock mixes out there that have half decent nutrition in them. I hate to say it that way. They make them look pretty, and they're taking advantage of you and the chicken.
Man, I see so many TikTok videos with people that are starting their own kind of feed, and they got it. They're doing it around in a barrel like that, and they pull it out, and they're like, "Look at that! Looks pretty, don't it?" And hey, look, it looks beautiful. The feed, I mean, looking at it through a video makes me want to eat it myself. But when you look at the guaranteed analysis on it, it could be a lot better.
Right.
And it's a premium price.
Look, if guys want to go to mixing their own, like they buy their own cracked corn, they buy their own Milo, they buy their own wheat, they'll buy their own oats, they'll buy their own soybean, and I'll happily give them the formula. Go get you a cement mixer from Lowe's or Harbor Freight or whatever, and start mixing it. And you can make a pretty feed, and if you go check out, my friend's site, Frank Oscar Bradley, Blazing Pitchfork, Gamefowl Farm, right? And he shows videos every time he's making feed, but he went all in, right? So he bought a pellet machine that he puts his protein in, and he puts his, his calcium and his vitamins and minerals and his fish meal and all that. And he puts those into a protein pellet.
Yep.
Then he adds his cracked corn, his whole corn, his wheat, his Milo, right? And all of his other grains to that pellet. And depending on what time of year it is, he can make his own feed. And I'll give anybody the formula to make your own feed. It's not, I'll tell you exactly the ingredients to put in there. And if you actually do it and you do it right, you'll never go back to a store-bought feed. Right, Carey?
Well, I mean, you may go to a store-bought feed, but it may just be your store.
Yeah.
And, speaking of that, my wife told me.
Now that you have a feed mill making feed for you, to your spec, you can do that. But
my wife won't let me buy it at cost.
No.
And I don't really know how to feel about that, because I go pick it up, I handle it, I do all the work. I should get an employee discount.
Employee discount's one thing. Cost is completely different. So
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Here's a great question. Since breeding season is right around the corner, what is the best way to prime your brood stock?
And I know Ethan is feeding his birds really, really well, right?
Yep.
I know he's feeding the best stuff he can get. Don't tell us otherwise, Ethan. I don't want to hear it. All right. But you know, and not trying to sell you something, but right now you got to get those vitamins and those amino acids at peak levels 2 to 3 weeks before you want to start hatching eggs, right? And that's how we get hatch rates up into the 90s and higher. But we get like really excellent chick vigor, right? When those chicks pop out of that shell, man, they're ready. They're ready. And, and that's all about vitamins, amino acids, proper fat levels, and that's how you're going to get them primed up, ready to go. And, those brood cocks, right? You want to make sure they're not fat, and you want to check them, make sure they're not fat, because fat will reduce the number of eggs a hen lays and reduces the amount of sperm that a rooster can deposit, how often he can successfully breed. So fat's going to kill you, but yeah, push those vitamins and amino acids and you won't be unhappy.
Yep. Because that's where you get your chick vigor. That's where you get your fertility, all that.
All that.
And I tell people, like, well, I usually do that like right when I start. I'm like, well, does a professional athlete start getting ready for the Super Bowl like Thursday?
Uh-huh.
Or do they prepare for that a little ahead of time?
Well, shit. The real athletes train year round. Now,
Right.
They train a little harder at some times than others, but they are training and they're keeping their physical condition in check 365 days a year. All right. So
let's see. Oh, Feather Fixture upped their aminos. They're killing it at 1% lysine and 0.4 on the methionine.
it's better than it was.
That is.
That's a true statement. That's
It really
statement.
is.
It is, right?
Because, and I'm glad he told me that, because, for the longest, I thought it was sad that an all flock had better amino acids than something that was advertised as being a feather fixer. Yeah. So, way to prove me wrong. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good evening, Sam. Let's see. Yeah. Chickens are gluttonous animals, and they'll definitely eat the bigger pieces first.
Yeah.
There's only one way to fix that. You feed a pellet or you feed a coarse mash.
The key to a mash, right, just so everybody understands this, is you want to have at least 75% of your particles to be the same size, right? So that's why everybody hears me say cracked corn, not whole corn, right? Because I want cracked corn the same size as a wheat berry, a grain of wheat, or the same size as a grain of barley, or the same size as a grain of oats. So I don't have birds going in there and cherry picking all the big stuff, right? Now, it's okay if they don't come back and clean up their powder till an hour later, right? And it takes training to get them to clean up powder, right? Carey, when you switched over, how long did it take your birds to figure out, and start eating the powder?
Roughly about 2 weeks, because I did what you said. Because I got tired of you laughing in my face for me not doing what you said and having to admit that you were right. And I started, I fed them, and I just started like putting a little bit of the mash in there, a little bit more. And I got to where it was half and half at a weekend. And then, 60-40, 70-30. And it got to where I think 2 or 3 days it was 90% mash and a few pellets in there. And then when I finished feeding out the pellets that I had, that was it. Now I have, sometimes when I'm going to be gone for a while, a lot of feeders are designed for pellets. So I will run my mash through the pellet mill, which, I mean, heck, when it first starts falling in the bottom of the barrel, it turns back to a mash because the impact makes it fall apart because there's no binders in there. Like, I don't put wheat mids or anything to it to make it bind. The pellet just stays a pellet, but I mainly do it so it don't clog the feeder up.
You didn't add any
And
sawdust?
nah, no
Man,
sawdust,
come on, man.
no wheat mids. I'm not feeding it to my chickens
Okay.
because I might decide I want to eat one and I don't want to eat it. Cause like this right here, 3 weeks or so ago, was had a not so good day in my yard. It was the last day in my yard, but I had to get down to my winter numbers. But yeah, that for me is one of the reasons why I don't want to feed mine a pellet, because I know what people put in pellets to make them a pellet. I mean, I've made pellets that you could throw them across the room, hit the wall, and they hold together. And I know how much crap you got to put in them to do that.
Well, you
And
still make those pellets for some people.
I mean, yeah, you can buy the supplement in a pellet. And I've had a couple people like, "Hey, why is the nutritional different?" Like, well, I mean, number one ingredient is wheat mids, and that's the absolute best binder ingredient you can get, but it still affects the numbers.
Yep.
And I'm not going to BS somebody.
It's still a filler. So no matter what you talk about, I mean, wheat mids are a filler. So if you got a good hard pellet, you got a filler.
Let's see here. Thanks for the last answer. I have another one. Is calf manna as a protein supplement a waste of money? And what do you think about calf manna in the keep feed along with cracked corn?
So look, I'm old enough to know just about when calf manna started. Okay. And that was a long time ago. Calf manna has been around for about 50 years, just so you know. And it was designed for calves, as the name says. Now, it's got some excellent properties to it, but it's still not really balanced for chickens. I think you could find something equal or better for the same money that would be more in line with a chicken's needs. In the keep, I don't change feed unless you want to go to the 22 keep feed. I keep feeding the conditioning feed. I cut back the conditioning feed, and I add a tablespoon of ground raw liver to it. Keep feeding the Show Pro supplement, right up until the last day. To me, the liver does a lot more than calf manna does, and it's higher in protein. So, ground liver is around 32 protein, and calf manna, last time I looked, was 25, and still has a bunch of grains in it. So I'm a big fan of feeding the raw liver in the keep. I think it helps them empty out better. I think it gives them better stamina. I think it gives them way better alertness. There's a pile of B vitamins in the liver, along with the right kind of protein and amino acid. So I would probably be more of a, feed them the conditioning feed, cut back to about 2 ounces, give them an ounce of ground raw liver, and see how you like that. And the liver is sticky enough that you can put the Show Pro on it, because you do need to cut the oil out at about 5 days out from the show. Otherwise, they won't dry out right. So,
yeah, the other day, we have a deep freeze at home where we keep a lot because we also have our own cattle. And my wife's like, "We need some ground beef. I'm gonna go by your warehouse and get some because I've got a couple 20 or 21 cubic footers here." She opens one up and she sees a bunch of liver and another body part that's only on a bull. And she says, "What are you doing with this? We don't eat liver." I said, "And we don't eat the other part either." I said, no, we don't. But there's a time and a place where my chickens do. And she said, I said, hey, babe, when you take a whole cow to the butcher, you get a whole cow back in packs. She just went,
So you got to have a box. You got to have a box that says chickens only, right? And put all that in there.
I mean, I said, hey, look, you could have waited on me to bring it home. That is what it is. Thoughts on Combach Hem House Reserve? I used it today for the first time with the oil and the Rapido.
It's okay. It's not great. It is okay. Last time I looked, it was 17 or 18 protein. Again, they make it look pretty. So they've got about 2/3 of it is grain and 1/3 is a pellet. Amino acids aren't, spot on, for the best looking game fowl. But, there's a whole lot worse on the market than Hen House Reserve. So, but yeah, that's, again, I guess, if you took Flock Maker and you added the grains to it to make a yard feed, you'd end up with something that looks like, Hen House Reserve. So it's not bad, Clark. It's just not, it's not everything we want it to be. But I think the birds would eat it really well because it does look pretty. So
yeah, I mean, it's the Hen House Reserve is pretty. It's got a lot of neat looking stuff in it. I mean, it's a good looking feed, and it smells pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, if you look at the guaranteed analysis of it versus some of the other feed,
right,
it's not what you're paying for.
Right. But if you took Flock Maker at 3 parts Flock Maker and 1 part grain, you'd get pretty close to the same numbers on Hen House Reserve, right? And, adding the oil and the Show Pro or the Rapido to it, got him pretty close to the same place if we would have gone the other direction. So I'm not totally opposed to it. Like I said, if I compared Hen House Reserve to some of the other Gamecock mixes that are out there, the Hen House Reserve wins, right? It's got better nutritional qualities. It's more nutritionally sound than most other Gamecock mixes on the market. So that is for sure.
Yeah. And there's better and worse.
Dougie got his 2 cents in. He's figured out this feed stuff finally. Quit fiddling around mixing it and just buy it from Carey.
And I'm gonna be honest, guys. 3 years or so ago, I was exactly where a lot of y'all are. I was trying to figure out what I could do to get the best from my birds. That simple. And it was take this and mix this and this and this and this, and I got a great feed. And I saw the improvements that my birds made. And then, my flock grew because I like them. Chicken math happens. And then it got to be ways to get more and more efficient. And that's when I went to Jeff and I was like, hey, look, can you make me feed formulas? This is what's available. I'm not thinking about cost. I'm thinking about the birds. Can you make me feed formulas? And he did. And that's where the feed came from because I got tired of mixing it. You got 150 birds that need to eat every day. That's a lot. So let's see. This one says, is Show Pro good to give during the keep as well? Or to give it to them with the feed line? Yes, but I would cut the oil the last 5 days, like Jeff said earlier. There's several guys. There's several guys that will use eggs.
Yeah, switch over to, you can use some hard-boiled egg or egg white and, mash it up a little bit, mix the Show Pro with that. I personally like the liver a little bit better.
Yeah.
We do have a keep feed. If you're interested in a 22 keep feed, we have one out there.
Which has gotten real popular lately.
Well, it's the season's right around the corner.
Snuck up on me.
But look, and I'm not going to downplay it, but I'll tell you this, that, my good friend Jen over in the Philippines doesn't change what he feeds in the keep, right? Because he doesn't really have a keep. He does, but he'll go pick a stag or a rooster up off a cord or out of a pen, right? And he kind of feels for him and sees, he might spar him, see what he's doing, how active he is. And then he decides which ones go, in the fly pens and which ones, then start the rotation but he only rotates for 3 or 4 days. He's still feeding the 18% pellet that I designed for him, which is pretty much the same as your 18%, conditioner feed that I designed for you, Carey. And right. He doesn't do, all this, liver and egg and, all this other stuff.
Well, I mean, for me, I would think that, when you do the keep, you don't want to stress the birds out. So why would you change it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, he just feeds the same thing right up till the end, right? He just feeds that 18 pellet, and either the bird's ready or the bird's not, is his philosophy, right? And several shows back we talked about the bird cycle, right? So every 21 days that bird's going to cycle on its own, regardless, unless you do something to change that cycle. Like some guys will hit them hard with wormers and antibiotics, and you reset the cycle at that point. So if you do that like 3 weeks out, then you're setting the cycle. And I'm kind of anti-medication, anti-wormer, but so if the bird's cycling up anyway, and you can figure out when the bird's cycling up, then right? Otherwise, you got a lot of work ahead of you to get the bird, cycling where you want him, get him where get him physically dumping out correctly, get him, dried out and the whole bit. So it's a lot of work, right? And you can do it, but it's easier to work with the natural cycle of the bird than it is, try and get him on your cycle.
And that just comes with knowing your birds, handling your birds, and all that. Really.
Dougie wants to know if you got breeder feed.
Yeah, I have breeder feed.
Okay.
Yep, we do. Jeff made one that has increased all those vitamins and amino acids and stuff he talked about earlier, specifically for breeding. We do have that.
I don't understand what Dwayne's asking. You need to help me out. Sometimes I miss Southern humor. When breeding season starts in the Philippines, do you need to dye your hair and your beard to match? I don't think he's talking chickens.
I know what he's talking about.
What's he talking
about? You sent me a clip today from one of our friends that Peter sent to you.
Oh,
that's what he's talking about.
Okay, all right.
So yeah,
some of us are not afraid of aging, and others, going to do everything they can to. Oh, morning, Peter. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, good luck.
Let us know how you make out.
Let's see. Switched from off lock to the feather fixture as well due to the higher amino acids. I would say double check that label. I see people adding activated charcoal to mash feed. Is that okay? Does it get rid of some of the nutrients? What would adding activated charcoal to your mash feed do, Jeff?
Well, look, if you're adding activated charcoal, you're doing it because you think the bird's been exposed to some sort of toxin, right? So the activated charcoal is going to be binding toxins. So if you're feeding, if you're feeding that low quality, bottom shelf kind of feed, yeah, go ahead and feed the charcoal, and it's probably you're going to see. You'll see the benefits. And if you're feeding top shelf feed, then the charcoal is going to hold you back, right?
Yeah. When collecting eggs, what's the weight the egg needs to be, and how long can eggs be stored before incubation? That's, gamefowl, 40-ish grams.
No. They're still a large egg, right? So I want 53 to 58 grams.
Yeah.
55 being a target, right? But
hit 55 as a target.
Yeah, that's a great question, though, Ethan. So I wish I got more questions like that. But I'd be looking for 55 plus or minus 2, like 53 to 57, 58. Yeah, you don't want too big and you don't want too small. So,
right.
Yeah, weigh your eggs. You're going to be a lot happier with your outcome.
And, with them being stored, that's kind of a multifaceted thing. If you want optimum results, you're going to have a wine chiller that keeps them around 60 degrees, and you're going to put them in there, and you're going to tilt them from side to side every day to, a slight angle, just like an incubator would do, or you're going to roll them something so the air sac doesn't get stuck. And optimally, a week or less. However, I've successfully hatched 4-week-old eggs. The hatch rate was not as high, but I'm also feeding the feed that checks off all the marks, and I still did get over an 80% hatch rate out of 4-week-old eggs. I did it just to see what would happen. What do you think, Joe?
I look, if you're feeding the hen right and you got those vitamin levels and nutrition levels right, you can keep eggs longer. You were pushing the limit at 4 weeks for sure, but
yeah,
I mean, wine.
I don't recommend that. I don't recommend it at all.
All right, we got a handful of questions, and we're going to wrap it. Right.
Liver, A's, and blood clotting. Yeah, because it's got a lot of vitamin K in it.
Yeah. Chubly asked about the Lone Star 16% conditioning mix. 16% isn't high enough. I haven't seen a tag on it. So if you want to message me a tag, I'll give you a deeper opinion. But to me, a 16% is never going to be a conditioning mix, right? It's too low in protein.
This right here, what are your thoughts on the hen box where she lays her eggs? I've heard you have to make it so deep that the sun doesn't shine inside. And do you know a company that sells good boxes for hens?
Most of the people out there, individual boxes, no. Most people in the gamefowl world are using buckets. I would prefer that you used a black or very dark 5-gallon bucket. Cut the lid in half, or even cut out 2/3 so you can hold the straw in there, put it on a slight angle. But I would like for you to, first off, you don't point the opening of the nest box towards the morning sun. You want to point it probably north this time of the year, but try and devise a way to put curtains over the front to minimize the amount of light in there, and she'll be a lot happier. But you don't want sun shining directly into a nest box. That is 100% true. I don't know anybody making single holders anymore, but go ahead.
Peter feeds engines, pellets all the way, 70% win rate, and he's waiting on showtime now. So that works. They don't need to keep in the Philippines. Doesn't last but 2 minutes.
That's true.
Yeah. Dwayne uses cat litter buckets.
Cat litter bucket will work, but you still should have a curtain, like dark cloth type curtain over the front.
What he does is he leaves the lid on, and he drills a 6-inch hole, 6 or 8-inch hole in the bucket, and puts it to where the back of the bucket is towards the sun. I've seen his. That's a pretty nice little idea he's got there, and he puts a board on it so it don't roll over. But I mean, we're over time.
Yeah.
And we're out of questions. So with that, we'll see y'all next week, fellas. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and love the good questions.
Love the good questions.
We would like to take a moment to thank our friends over at ShowPro Farm Supply for their generous sponsorship and support. Whether you're raising heritage poultry, show poultry, gamefowl, or other species of livestock, ShowPro offers custom formulated feeds and supplements to help your animals reach their full genetic potential. And they don't stop at livestock. They also carry Alumacoop's movable poultry housing, plus a full line of Fertility farm and garden products, so your whole homestead gets what it needs to thrive. Check out ShowPro Farm Supply, where nutrition meets know-how.